I'm Sherry Estes. I'm the principal here at Kanapaha, so welcome. Glad you guys could make it tonight. But at this time, I would like to introduce Jackie Johnson, who is going to get our evening started.
Thank you, Sherry, and thank you to all your staff for helping us get set up tonight. As Sherry said, my name is Jackie Johnson. I'm Director of Communications for Alachua County Public Schools, and I'm also pleased to welcome you to our rezoning input session. Before I get started on letting you know how the evening's going to go, I want to introduce some of the folks who are here. All 5 board members are here tonight to hear what you have to say. That includes our board chair, Tina Certain, our vice chair, Dr. Leonetta McNeely, board member Kay Abbott, board member Dion McGraw, and board member Dr. Sarah Rockwell. Dr. Edwards is going to give a brief presentation about what's going on with rezoning, why we're doing it, some of the factors that have been considered in developing these proposed maps, and I want to stress the word proposed because it is very likely that there will be more changes to these maps before they're voted on December 5th by the school board. We have many more opportunities for the public to weigh in on this before that board vote happens. And part of that, of course, is hearing from you before any sort of plan is finalized and voted on by the board on December 5th. So we appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to be here tonight and share your thoughts about this. After Dr. Edwards gives her presentation, I will be walking you through the interactive map that's available on our rezoning page so you can see how it works and some of the additional features that it offers. We also have for you some charts that are also available on that website that give some demographics that show you kind of the before and after based on the proposed maps of what happens with the student numbers. After the presentations are finished, we'll be asking anyone who wants to speak to come up to the microphone when I give you the cue, and you'll have 3 minutes to talk to the board. You'll see we have a timer up front. It'll count down so you'll be able to see how much time you have left, and then we'll call up the next speaker. If you have input, but you'd rather not speak tonight, that is absolutely fine. You have a couple of options. You can fill out this input form that's available at the front table and then leave it back at the front table on your way out. We also have a special rezoning input email box called rezoning@gm.sbac.edu. That information is available on the back of what we call our frequently asked questions. And if you haven't picked up that particular document, I encourage you to do that because that has answers to a lot of very commonly asked questions about the whole rezoning process. That is also available on that rezoning website. And then after we get done with the public input portion, we will be asking you for a little bit more of your input. We have an online survey, very quick to do, that you can do on your phone. And we'll actually be able to show you the results of that on the screen this afternoon as long as our internet keeps working. So we do ask you to hang around a little bit longer after the input session of the portion of the meeting is done so we can hear what you have to say in response to some of the questions we have for you about rezoning. So at this point, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Edwards to share with you some information about the whole rezoning process. Dr. Edwards?
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. We are going to share where we are in the rezoning process as of today and the information that we've utilized to get to this point. So for our rezoning process or the agenda for tonight, we are focusing on our objectives, reviewing policy 5120, looking at the constraints have been for the methodology used, sharing a little bit of our data collection process, current school enrollment. We will go through sample school data considerations today for both Kanapaha and Uhalts as examples, demographic analysis process that we have used and some of the rationale, and some additional considerations as we move forward. Of course, our objectives are to establish geographic zone lines for schools within the district, and in doing so, we want to ensure that we are aligning student capacity with student enrollment across the district, as well as prioritizing fiscal responsibility and efficiency, which is inclusive of our facilities, transportation, and personnel. So in policy 5120, which relates to our zoning process, we know that the superintendent periodically would review school enrollment and make recommendations to the board for changes in district school zones. And these modifications typically would follow after new construction or changes with schools and overpopulation that we may see at any given school that may take into consideration growth in the community and decline of student populations at particular schools. Within Policy 5120, changes can be justified by the board considering financial and administrative efficiency, school capacity and grade level capacity, the convenience of access to schools for students, the safe and efficient student transportation and travel, effective and appropriate instructional programs, the socioeconomic diversity in school enrollment, looking at equitable impact at each of our schools, as well as utilization of our physical space. And then finally, we want to ensure for our public that we are clarifying the language that we are using as it relates to policy. And so the superintendent can recommend to the board the adoption of enrollment caps for schools within the district, and priority shall be given to those schools that are considered crowded. In previous sessions, we have talked about being able to capacity get utilized 90% or above, which are the range we would use as for consideration for zoning exemptions and the like. In our policy, it clearly defines that percentage as being crowded. And so we want to make sure that the terminology aligns and that we are stating that our schools that are 90 to 100% are deemed as crowded. Total capacity would be those schools that are 100% or more, right, or above 100%. So in our methodology, when considering constraints for our zone lines, we have looked at transportation challenges, where our walk zones are, the safety of bus routes and shorter bus routes. So the walk zones are safe bus routes, and then also considering having shorter routes for students. Our school capacity means that we are looking at permanent capacity in our brick and mortar building, as well as what's happening with portables and computer labs, which I will talk about a little bit later. And then our magnet program. So when we are looking at where our magnet programs are actually located for the various schools, and where we have especially schools that are crowded or over capacity, and what are the parameters for our zoning exemption. So when we start with our transportation challenges, we're looking at the budgetary considerations, that when we are considering walk zones, which are students who are able to walk to school within 2 miles of that school, if they live within a 2-mile radius, whether the bus routes are considered or deemed to be hazardous or not, and then also trying to eliminate very long bus routes from one school to another where possible. Our current operational cost for transportation right now is $11,800,000 to operate current transportation with our busing. And so any changes that we can make to alleviate those costs as we impact bus usage, gas, mileage, maintenance, and drivers. For school capacity, we have been having some conversations as new data arises consistently out of this process. We recognize that portables make a difference, and we've talked about that before, that we have portables on many of our campuses. In fact, on our school campuses, we have 324 portables. 216, or 2/3 of those, are owned by the school district, but 108 are currently being leased. And so we are paying monthly or annually for the lease portable. And so when we look at that, we recognize as well that when we are focusing on our computer labs, that in some of our schools we have hardwired labs. And in those schools where we have our hardwired labs, if we have, for instance, a hardwired lab and students are going to the lab using, for instance, desktops, if that school then becomes a one-to-one school with devices, or we have laptop carts in that school, that space where the lab is being utilized may become a classroom space for 25 additional kids. So there may be a shift that can occur by simply changing how the labs are being used on campus. It also means that if we have a leased portable on that same campus, students could potentially be moved from the portable into the classroom space where there was an actual lab, and that thereby we could change the usage of space within the brick and mortar setting, which would change many things for a school. It would change how transitions occur. It can allow for a change in culture in terms of how students are viewing that school and the schooling experience. And it allows for students to, of course, be with their other peers without having to go outside of the brick and mortar building. Unless we're on a campus, of course, like Kanapaha, where you still have to go across campus to get to another brick and mortar. So when we look at our magnet programs, a consideration for magnet is also where our enrollments are. So if we consider high schools, if, for instance, Buchholz is considered over capacity, which it is, and we are accepting 150 students into the ninth grade magnet programs at Buchholz, the district would need to consider whether they would want to lessen the enrollment at entry points at ninth grade to address some of the capacity concerns at that school. And so that does not mean that the magnet would be removed. However, it does mean that there might be less students per year that are allowed to be enrolled in the magnet program at the zone school. So thus far, as we have collected data and worked with DRMP, we have looked at the following points. When we started with our first data point, we know that we were really focusing on the data was provided in February of 2023 of the 22-23 school year. When we entered into the 23-24 school year, after we've done the 10-day count, we went back to look at the next state of data or data set or data points based on students who are enrolled within our schools as of 8/23/23. So in August of the 23-24 school year, we went back to look at those students who were zoned and utilizing that same data to propose who might potentially be in school in our 24-25 school year. And so we will talk a little bit about that, but in the sheets that you all have in your hands, the one that is not front and back, that is our current enrollment right now, where we are in school, the number of students that we currently have, the percentage of that enrollment with the school capacity. It starts on the top line with Parker. That's one way of differentiating those two. What we'll see is that on that sheet, it will also provide demographics for us currently for our school year, where students are in terms of where economic disadvantage, which has been determined by our free and reduced lunch status codes. Also, it will show race, and it will show whether students are ESE designation. The ESE designation is inclusive of students who have disabilities, but does not include students who are gifted. And then also, as a question was raised earlier today, if there are students who are considered both gifted but may have the IEP for another reason, they would also be included in this data because they might have a different identifying factor. And so when we look at that, we look at also the second page that has the front and back. That will say on the front side, if it's stapled in that way, it should say our current proposed zones. Those are students who are in a geographical zoned area, right, who are currently attending a public school in Alachua County. Those students are listed there, but they are not inclusive of students who are in charter or private schools. So you have your geographical region or zones, and these are all students who can attend that school, but they are not inclusive of students who attend private schools or charter schools. The flip side of that sheet is proposed for 24-25. Same data set from August 23 of this year, still for the zones, but these are for the zones for 24-25. And again, the charter and private school students have been removed from the data set to only reflect students who are currently attending public schools within Alachua County, okay? So what would happen at our next juncture, and what we're working towards already, is having the data set that actually shows us what these demographics look like in terms of the small subsets of students that may have been moved from school X to school Y, from school X to school Z. It would show each of these demographic factors for each of those so that you can kind of follow the pathway of where students are. Right now, you can only see the whole group, And then you can see the percentage of students within that zoned area who, for instance, may go to a magnet program, who may be on zoning exemption. But you can't necessarily look to identify how many kids that is from one school to the next school. So the current enrollment, which was the first sheet we looked at, the one that is not front or back, that has Parker, the for instance would be that Parker is at 103% current enrollment, which means that it is considered to be over capacity. The school capacity is 489, but the current enrollment is 502. If you follow the column of percentage currently enrolled, and you follow it down, you'll notice the schools that have overcapacity. Littlewood would be next, followed down, and we would see Newberry High School, Buchholz, Wiles, Meadowbrook, and Newberry Elementary School, which has the highest percentage being currently over capacity. These are the numbers as of 8/23/23. Something else that came up earlier today was, wait, we have more kids in our school than we see on this actual sheet. That is because between August of 23/23 and today, October 2nd, additional students could have enrolled in the school. You can see the economic disadvantage. The numbers here, they are in percentages, even though you don't see the percent sign, as well as ESC classification, and then our race demographics, all the way through our zoning exemptions, magnet, choice, and district programs. And our district programs could be something such as our functional units that might be had at a school such as Littlewood. This next sheet is here simply to kind of clarify the process that we have been using, and the multiple factors that have to be considered as we go through comprehensive rezoning, and why the numbers sometimes don't appear to be just a clear, stable number. Like, why can't you just say there are this many kids here and this many kids at another school and make that level? So if you look here at Kanapaha Middle School, again using the data as of the beginning of this school year on 8/23, at Kanapaha, existing within our current middle school zone lines, we have 1,010 students who are zoned for Kanapaha. In reality, it would be 1,321. However, we have 159 of those students attending Lincoln Middle School. 44 of those students are attending Howard Bishop Middle School. 41 are going out to Oakview. So when those students are going to either magnet programs, zoning exemptions, there's like a multitude of reasons, district programs, they are being pulled out of the count for Kanapaha Middle School. So you look at that for where we are as of 8/23/23, but then for the proposed lines for 24/25, that is what you see in the right-hand column. The right-hand column would show you that in 24/25 with the new proposed lines, 1321 now changes to 967. So less students would be attending Kanapaha according to what is on the proposed zone. However, every single school in our county has these sheets. And so you have to look at where students are being added in one and taken away in another, okay? So in the next data set that is provided, it will show some of the shifts, and we're looking to have more defined details. It is also why when we are looking at savings and costs, for instance, on the portables, and we're looking at tutor labs, we have to take these changes into account, make sure that we have those detailed numbers so that we're making adequate projections. This is for Buchholz High School. Same process that was used for Kanapaha as well as the other schools within our district. And you will see here for existing high school zone lines, 2,581 students are currently zoned for Buchholz High School. We have a number of students who are going to DHS, 270, 177 attending Eastside, 53 at Santa Fe, and so forth. What you don't see here, what is capable for, we can see in our charter schools and things, you can see the numbers. But remember, we said that our charters and our private schools were pulled out of the data. And so they're not provided here because they're not in this data set. But we do also have those numbers for students who are going to charter schools in our area. Proposed is the same, so it will show you that with the proposed zone lines, the total count of 2581 is now shifted for 2425 to 2,216. I want to make a point here while we're on this slide that there are assumptions that we have to make when we're going through this process. We do not know how many students who are currently attending a private or a charter school will continue to go to that school next year. And so when we're having conversations, it is important to note that there are some realities of life that we might not want, we don't think certain things are going to happen, but a parent whose child goes to Littlewood Elementary School and knows that there's going to be a new school in 25, 26, might say, you know what, I like this new facility and I want my child to go to this school. A school that is down the road from me that I've had my child going to in a private school could burn down in the middle of the summer. I hate to say that, but it could, right? And so all of the students who are attending that school, they might decide they're going to come down to public school, or they just might wake up one day and say, I want to do something different. And so because those students literally have the right to attend the school for which they're zoned in the public area, we have to keep them in our consideration, even if that historical data has shown that they have not been coming to public school. These are the same as what I just shared for current data, but again, the demographics for students currently attending a zone public school in Alachua County. I think it is important to note here that we have considered, for instance, when we move to the proposed map for like Littlewood, the additional seats that would be added to Littlewood. We are taking into consideration for the high schools, the dual enrollment students that are included in the number, because there may be students who are going to Santa Fe College, however, they are taking classes at the high school as well, or dual enrolled, and they're included in the numbers here. So the rationale, as we work through it with DRMP, the first thing is to make sure that everybody is on the same page, noting that this current analysis is based off of the data that was exported from Spiral in August of 2023, and that the previous data that you may have looked at earlier on in the year came from data from February 2023. And so that distinction is important. The next thing is that geocoding is used in order to fulfill this process. And that means that there is a tool that is used and is written to compare and provide student addresses with 911 addresses. And they kind of layer those and look for the specific address points on the map in order to make these determinations. Sometimes there is not an exact match, and so they have to estimate those based upon the addresses that are provided. And so that is done through a geocoding process through DRMP. So we are not estimating them through Alachua County, but it is coming from the agency that we are working with. Charter and private school assumptions I've talked about, but I also want to make sure that I share that Sidney Lanier, Aquin Jones, and Lofton High School is not included in our data sets because they do not have students who are zoned to their school. They're more or less assigned to the school. And so they don't have an actual zone for students to be populated there. There are a few outliers where there was not race information attached to the student record. They're very small in number, but we wanted to make sure that that was shared with the public in case there is anybody digging deep into the data and counting each one and says numbers are incorrect. Secondly, you may see that there are some students who say, well, why does it say a high school? We can have students who are attending Lincoln Middle School, for instance, who are taking a class at Eastside, and thereby they are actually listed under the high school. And so we wanted to also make sure that that has been taken into account. For data descriptors, I think I've mentioned that we have ESE students, but we did not include gifted that we have economically disadvantaged, which is based on all the codes that you see here that have come from our fields and skyward for lunch status. Program and exception codes, that's our district programs, our choice and magnet programs, and district programs can be functional units, they can be assignments to be alternates in schools because of behavior or whatever those other reasons may be that we're placing people in other schools. We take into account students for McKinney-Vento that may be moved because of homelessness, our choice and our magnet programs. All the exemption codes have been provided, and so we take that information into consideration as well. And we list the actual reason codes on the bottom of this slide, which is choice, our opportunity scholarships, character counts, ESOL programs, such as those at like Parker, Westwood, and GHS, our magnet programs, and zoning exemptions. And then the two accomplishments that have come from the comprehensive rezoning process thus far. All of our zone lines based on the geographical areas have shifted eastward in our county because that is where the availability of space are. In schools, that's where we see the underpopulated areas within our community, and so they are shifting. We do have to take into account schools such as Terwilliger that was completely moved because remember we had the old Terwilliger and the new Terwilliger, so they are encompassed in another portion. There may be students, however, who are at a school like Terwilliger who initially were all moved to the new Terwilliger, but under comprehensive rezoning, when you look at the actual points where students live, might be zoned for Littlewood. They might live within 2 miles. And so when you're thinking about bus transportation, you have to take that into consideration, and that's where you might see some shifts. The other accomplishment here is that they viewed our old or former maps and changes as it relates to parcel lines. So many of those were broken up on the previous maps, and so they have made more consistent lines to demonstrate exactly where those parcels exist. But that does not impact the enrollment for our schools, but we just wanted to clarify that the boundaries are clear now. When we have gone through this process, we looked at some of our practices and procedures for Alachua County. When you're working through all this different data, you're digging into it, and you're working with multiple departments, many things start showing up. And we've recognized that there are places where we may need to consider how we are addressing our zoning exemptions and choice and district programs, what is happening with our magnet programs, where they're located, the number of students that are there. We've talked about our computer labs, our one-to-one. How are these things being paid for? What's the process that we're using so that we are projecting enrollments based off of true need and not just the numbers that have shown maybe because processes need to also be addressed. And so we have been working on that in various departments in the district. In our considerations, of course, I've mentioned it already, Littlewood Elementary School is reopening in 25-26 with increased seats. Westwood will be back in their brick and mortar buildings next school year for the 24-25 year. And then we also want to keep in mind our voucher programs, charter schools, private, magnet, everything that's happening out in the world today. There's so many options, right? Virtual programs, our dual enrollment accounts. All of these factors impact what happens at each one of our schools. And so this is a multifaceted process. Our goal as we move forward is to get to October 17th. Prior to that, we will have another data set. Jackie has already mentioned that the process is fluid. The maps are not final. This is just a list of where our next concessions are. Jackie will come back and share information about interactive maps.
So as we said, we've got a very useful interactive map that's available on our website, and you've got a couple of ways you can get to it. There's this tab here, red tab that says rezoning, or you can click on the bigger one right here, and click on the rezoning map. And you'll see a lot of the information that's been presented here tonight, including, for example, those charts that you're looking at. They're here under demographic data. You'll see on the top of each chart, there is some, unfortunately, very small print but it's very important print because it indicates, as some of the things that Dr. Edwards talked about, who is included, who isn't included in each one of these charts. Charter schools, magnet schools, dual enrolled students, students who attend Lofton High School, students who attend David Jones, students who are homeschooled. So you can see kind of who's in and who's out by looking at that wording, but we've also got it in bigger letters on this website, and so you can see it's got an explanation of who's included in chart 1, who's included in chart 2. So all of that is available on the website. We also have frequently asked questions. We have Dr. Edwards' presentation. You can see it there. A list of our upcoming meetings that have to do with rezoning. But right now, let's go to proposed new zone maps. And again, you have a couple of options. You have the static maps that you're able to get at the front table here, but you also have our lookup system interactive maps. What this system allows you to do is actually type in an address that you're interested in. So just for fun, I'm going to type in the address for the district headquarters. And there it comes up, 620 East University Avenue, that's our district headquarters. And so there's a map that actually locates where headquarters are. Now what you want to do is come up here and click on elementary school. And what you can do is add and subtract layers so you can see what is actually going to happen, and you can see what are the proposed maps. So for example, the proposed elementary school zone you can see here is at Cass Elementary. You can see that the current middle school is Westwood, but that the proposed middle school is going to be Howard Bishop. Same thing, current zone is Gainesville High School. Proposed zone is going to be Eastside High School. So there you can see the zone lines, and you can zoom in and zoom out. So you can see that those will be the new zone lines. You can see both the current zone lines and the proposed zone lines. And the eyeballs are critical. If you want to take something off, that gets rid of the current zones, put it back on. So what you'll see when you zoom in is for this area, for the district office, the current zones are outlined in the bold flag. So that's the current zone. The sort of pinkish color shows what the proposed elementary zone is. And you can do that for all levels. You want to see the current high school zones, so there it pops up. And you want to see the proposed high school zones. And you can see this is currently the zone that it would be a part of. And you can see that under the proposed plan, again, proposed plan, this color area. And if you zoom in, you'll notice that there is a lot more detail. Now you can see streets, you can see other landmarks to help orient you. So at this point, what we would like to do is open it up to all of you. As I said, you each have 3 minutes to make your comments to the board. What we'd like to do is ask anybody who would like to address the board to just line up at the microphone. And when you're done speaking, we'll call up the next person.
Thank you all for your time. I know this is a difficult undertaking, so I appreciate all the time and effort that everybody's put into the rezoning of the schools, and all the information that was given makes sense. The question that I have on the input that's going to be available on whether or not homeowners have any kind of ability to get an exemption for their property with the new rezoning of Terwilliger's school zone, our current address is exactly 1 mile from my front door to Childs. It's one of the reasons we purchased our home over last summer, was so that we would be zoned for Childs, and somehow we've been scooped into the Terwilliger zone, which now we are, by the way, it suggests to drive past Childs to go 3.5 miles to Terwilliger, or if we have to bypass that zone because there's the Rock, Childs, Queen of Peace, all of these school zones. If we go the long way up to 8th Avenue over to 122nd and South, we're now 4.5 miles. my girls can currently walk and bike to school with us in the mornings. My wife and I are able to take them to school on mornings that they don't have time to bike. We're within a 3-minute car ride from our front door to Childs, and taking us to Terwilliger adds the inability for them to walk or bike safely to school, as well as either having to bus or have us go around through school zone traffic. And we weren't quite sure how we got captured into that Terwilliger zone when we looked at the map. So I know you guys can't address that specific question here, but I'm wondering if instances like this where we are within 1 mile of the current school that we're at now and being kicked out to one that's 3.5 or 4.5 miles away, are those going to be things that will be considered, and how are we, what is the best way for us to, get that information to be considered for exceptions?
Thank you, sir, for coming. There's a process for zoning exemptions to be considered, but I've noted your concern here now, and as well as the team who is working on rezoning. So we'll be considering all public input before the final map, sir.
And just that form where we email,
There's a
that
form
would
there
be.
that you can do, but I mean, each school year, there is a process where if you apply for a zoning exemption or school choice, that's no guarantee that it'll be approved, but there is a process for that. But I'm saying during this process, this period now, we're receiving public input, and the staff is here, and we'll be considering a whole lot of other things. So these maps, as Ms. Johnson or Dr. Elba said earlier, are not final.
Okay. And I noticed on several of the school zone maps, it looks like some of the lines were drawn with consideration of where neighborhoods are and their road outlets to other major roadways. Our house, again, and I'm not going to get my address out on here, but our house just got clumped in with where a computer line was drawn, but our property is not accessed to 8th Avenue or these other roads, where the only way for us to get to school is to go down 91st and then go the long way around to our school zone. So I'll make sure to fill that out. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Hey, good afternoon. My name's Justin. I have a 3rd grader at Childs, and actually he stole most of my story. We're 2 miles away from the school, and we bought our house in February for that school. I mean, for the house, but for that school. And yeah, we're trying to understand, I don't know whose chime that is. We're trying to understand why Google Maps says we are 2.0 miles away from the school. I went to the district office on Main Street, or on whatever, in August. Yep, I saw Dr. Brown speak. It was not an input session, turns out. But yeah, I was kind of blown away that was a big part of it, was the 2-mile walkable school, and we are literally that. And now we're also zoned for Terwilliger. And I noticed in a lot of your school zones, you have this kind of congruent, I think was the word somebody used, shape with this like little squiggle that goes off. The one you just showed had this weird spike going up the top. Like, what's the logic behind doing that? Our zone goes all the way up to 8th, or used to, and now our neighborhood only seems to jut out from the right on, for Terwilliger, and it's just, a lot of our investment into this property and for our children is kind of getting dashed apart by that. So, yeah. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Yan Lin. I'm a resident from the Cobblefield community. I also want to echo the messages from the first 2 gentlemen, because my primary concern with the current rezoning is the issue of proximity. So for our neighborhood, currently kids are going, they attend Childs Elementary, but after the rezoning, they will go to Terwilliger. This is an issue because Terwilliger is further away from our community compared to 3 other elementary schools, including Childs, Wiles, and Hidden Oaks. I would like the board to kind of consider our request, either in redrawing of the districts or giving us an opportunity to potentially apply for exceptions. So I want to thank you all for coming, and also thank the district teams for organizing this event.
Hi, I'm Katrin. I am a parent of 2 kids currently at Wiles, and we are part of the Hale Plantation area that would be rezoned from Wiles to Childs. And I also very much recognize there's a whole lot that goes into this. My point comes at kind of multi-points. One, I have children who have health issues. Both of them have type 1 diabetes. I have spent like the last 3 years building a relationship with the nurse, training EDEP staff, training like every extracurricular teacher, and just the amount of time when you have a child with health issues that you spend and the relationships you build. I mean, it's like we'll get teary if I have to say bye to that nurse, but I mean, we will if we have to, but like that is one thing where families that do have like 504s or DMMPs in place, there's a lot that goes into making your child safe at school. My second point, the kids, one of my children is a 3rd grader, and so he'll be in 4th grade next year, so he would be moved for his last 2 years. That is the school year of kids who came in to kindergarten at COVID. I mean, this is probably the first school year that's been normal for him. There have been COVID spikes every other year. He has like not had a year of normal school. School is like his second home. Our family was very much COVID conscious. The places he went for kindergarten and 1st grade were school and home. EDEP was the only place he played with friends unless we met them at a park. Like, his heart, he will break having to move. So, I mean, I don't know if there would be ways that kids who are currently out of school, if we could do it somewhat of new matriculating students would move. I certainly recognize that rezoning needs to happen. I just, for my children's health and social emotional, I know that it's going to be very difficult to move. I mean, and our distance is not like the Cobblefield neighborhood to Terwilliger, but certainly the south side of Hale that's being rezoned, it only takes us 5 minutes to get to Wiles. It is going to take us 10 or 15 minutes with traffic, and the way we're going to have to go around Hale to get over to Childs, which, again, we know people can do, but that is going to add time every morning for us. I think my last point is just if there would be considerations for when kids get rezoned for EDEP and other things. We have also been a family that has been at EDEP since my kids were in kindergarten. I mean, I went and gave them the check immediately. We always sign up right away. And by moving to a new school, if we're not given preference, I mean, that's like built into our family budget is EDEP. Again, also it's easier for my children with their medical needs to be at school, so I don't have to have an additional diabetes box like on a bus to Sun Country or worry if they're going to go high or low. So those are, I think, other considerations that I hope can be considered for students. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jyotir. So I do have a 6-year-old boy and a 2-year-old girl. So we are currently zoned to Hidden Oak. And, as you guys know, because you're the board of directors and you guys know that, you guys assign grades for different schools. There's a reason for that. Hidden Oak being the highest quality elementary school in Gainesville. I mean, I don't think anyone can deny here. And now you guys are forcing us, because I don't mind traveling. I can travel 1 hour if that is for my kids' quality education. Now you guys are forcing me to go my kids to Terwilliger, a D-grade school. So if you guys tell me that school grades doesn't matter, then why give the grades? So, I mean, we came from a family that gives priority to education. I did my master's and doctorate for that reason. So education is my priority. My son was born in 2017. We bought the house in 2018. And we bought the house that is zoned to the best school. And me and my wife, we are working hard to pay for that. Now you guys are forcing us to go to Terwilliger, a D-grade school. And not just that. There's one more reason. I don't know if you guys looked at the traffic on Newberry Road. We were like 2.5 miles from Hidden Oak. Now we had to go to 4 miles. But even that doesn't matter, right? When I looked at it, sure, it makes any sense for you guys to maybe reduce the boundary of the school to reduce the enrollment. But then the way you guys did with the Hidden Oak, like you extended the other part, which was not part of Hidden Oak. So you are eventually kicking the people who are in A-grade school, but then you are assigning other areas which are not part of that originally. So I don't think it's fair when we are already zoned to that, and that's the reason we bought the house, okay, just for my school's education. And the other thing is, in the least case, I hope you guys consider this, but if you guys cannot consider these or you guys went with whatever you guys have, I would say at least give an exemption to the parents that has the kids that are already enrolled in the current school zones and their siblings. So in that way, whoever bought the house next, they know that they are not going to that specific school zone. So the people who are already in the school zone, they can go to that. So that will also reduce the newer enrollments coming to the current school zones. I don't know if that makes sense. So I think that's fair because you can't just kick us out from A grade to D grade. So that's my biggest concern. I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you.
for coming.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Keita Seaton. My son is in 6th grade here at Kanapaha, and I have a few concerns, some of which have already been addressed. The first thing is the distance. My son rides the bus, and it's already a nightmare getting him here, and I've had to drop him to school. And now he's being rezoned for a school that's across town, for Lincoln Middle School, and it's across town. It's going to be a 30-minute drive, and it's very inconvenient. The second thing is he has an IEP, he has social anxiety and ADHD, and he's been settled into Kanapaha, and I'm worried about him moving to another school, and as other parents have mentioned, what kind of zoning exemptions we can get for students with special needs. The third topic I would like to just bring up, and I know it's an uncomfortable topic, is the issue of diversity here at Kanapaha. I've noticed the number and the ratio of black students to white students have dropped significantly with the rezoning. Currently, there's about 36% white students and about 30% black students. That has changed drastically with the proposed rezoning. I haven't got a chance to look at all the other stats, but I am concerned about diversity in the schools and shifting of like the black students to the other black school. That's just how it's coming across to me as a parent. And another parent also mentioned Kanapaha is rated as an A or B school, and now Lincoln, unfortunately, is rated not as high. I know they have the magnet program, but it's not rated as high. And so how are you addressing that for parents who are currently enrolled in an A school and now they're being rezoned for a school that's not as good? Those are just some of the concerns that I would like to bring.
Thank you for giving me your feedback. We've noted it. I won't dialogue with everyone. We can't do that. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chairwoman Certain. Good to see you again, and board members. My name is John Schmidt. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of G.W. Robinson Builders here in Gainesville, Florida. Mr. G.W. Robinson is my father-in-law, and Glenda Gay Robinson is my wife, and she is a product of your public school system, graduating from Buchholz High School many years ago, in fact, a few decades ago. We're here because we're very interested in our community, Laureate Village. In the current state, Laureate Village students are in the very northeast extreme of the Archer Elementary School zone. With your proposed Terwilliger zone, however, our families and our students will become part of the Terwilliger Elementary School program, a mere 2.5 to 3 miles away from our community, which is immediately west of Weatherly and Town of Tioga along 8th Avenue on the west side of, the west end of 8th Avenue. So from the standpoint of transportation and ease of access for our families, we strongly support your proposed recommendation for Terwilliger to allow our children to attend that elementary school rather than be bused 12 miles away to Archer Elementary School. Thank you very much for all you do. It's a very large task that you've taken on, and I have a warm spot in my heart for public school teachers. My only sister is a retired public school teacher in Orlando, and my daughter is a first grade teacher over in Jacksonville. So we are teachers in our family and care greatly about the education of our children, and want to thank you for all you do overseeing the Alachua County Public School System. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith.
Hey, thank you. My name is Carla. I'm mom of 2 kids in Childs, and I want to thank the board for looking to the schools carefully and provide great education for us. That's why we are here, because we believe in the education and the effort. I'm joining here my neighbors. We live in the zone of Cobblefield, and there are some points that are not very clear to us. One, more straightforward, is the proximity, because we are 1 mile away. I think my neighbors already talk about that, right? The second point, it's about capacity of the schools. So Childs currently, that's the schools that my kids are, there are no problem about capacity. So, and we know that whenever it mixed up, it's going to impact. But the proximity and how the neighborhood is already there, and how we are going to move the students is a concern to us, right? And looking to the numbers, the capacity for the Newberry and also the other one, Wiles, is still the same. So I'm a little concerned about the numbers and what we are trying to accomplish with this new rezoning, even though we understand how important it is. Another point is diversity. So I represent a minority community, you can tell by my accent. And in Childs now, they are going to reduce the community that I'm part of. So I start to question, if we are looking to diversity indeed. Another point that may be the most important to us is the quality of education. So we are migrating from a school to a school that needs improvement, right? So if we are talking about schools that are equal, we won't be here, maybe, even though we know we are going to be impacted by the proximity. But we are migrating our kids to a school that we rely on for another one that needs a lot of improvements. And for parents, it is still a concern. And I wish we could work very well on Twigler first to make us very confident of this change. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name's Matt. I have a first grader and a fifth grader at Meadowbrook Elementary. And I'm going to start with just a selfish request before I get into a few other points about the general process of the rezoning. So the request is in the most recent map that we received, there were several neighborhoods north of Newberry Road that are currently zoned for Meadowbrook that are now going to be pulled into the Terwilliger zone. So those are like the Arbor Greens, West End, that area. So 143rd, Newberry Road. That my request would be that not get swallowed up into the Terwilliger zone, primarily because we remain zoned for Fort Clark Middle School and Buchholz High School. So just from a logistical standpoint for us, it makes it nearly impossible for us to be able to do the things that we do now for our kids after school. Unfortunately, we can't rely on bus transportation just because of the nature of the struggles of busing. And so we are the transportation for our students, for our children, I should say, and it would really hinder our ability to get to work on time. It doubles our commute in the morning, and then it also would double it in the afternoon. And with the tight schedules that we run, it would just make it impossible for us to be able to do that. So that's my selfish, this is why I'm here, that's the request. I can't help but, so I actually just recently left the school district. I worked for the school district for almost 14 years, and I was an administrator for some time at a overcrowded school. And so I do have a different perspective maybe than people who haven't worked in the school system. And so one thing, and actually the parent before me just mentioned it, is when we say overcrowded school, what most parents really worry about is the kid or the classroom my kid's sitting in overcrowded. Right, that's all we really care about. I mean, it's they don't care if it's 120%. Most parents never ask me. I worked at a school with a lot of portables, and no one ever said, "Is my kid in a portable?" Or never got questions about portables. I know that's a concern for the school system from a financial standpoint, but parents don't really care, right? And what we might find here is, for example, I know a lot of parents are here to talk about Childs. Based on some back of the napkin calculations that I did, based on the data that we have available, looks like Childs might lose about 60 kids, right? So you figure 60 kids spread out over 6 grade levels, that's 10 kids per grade level. You go, okay, great, that's smaller classes, right? Well, probably not, right? There's 6 teachers, and you spread those kids out over, so you might be looking at 1 or 2 less kids per classroom. Now, that's best case scenario, because what's really going to happen is you drop in 60 kids. What's going to happen? You're going to lose 3 units, right? You're going to lose 3 teachers. So now those kids are actually going to get absorbed into other classes. So imagine a situation where you go and you rezone a school and parents are frustrated with that because we know it's not good. You guys aren't sitting here thinking it's probably a good idea just to shuffle all these kids up. You're trying to fix a problem. I understand that. But imagine a situation where you rezone all these people and they're going from Cobblestone to Terwilliger and they're driving past this school and then they hear from the people that are still at the school, our classes got bigger. My kid, I'm not into 18 kids anymore, it's 23 now. What did we do? And that's what the parents really care about, right, is my kid's classroom, right? So that's again, I couldn't help it.
Sorry.
I'm out of time. All right, I'll come to another one. Thank you for your time, I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming.
Good evening. I'm James. I have 2 children, both here at Kanapaha in 6th and 8th grade. My first concern is the magnet programs and the zoning exemptions don't cover things like clubs. So I've got one kid that's been going to the math league for Buchholz since he was at Wiles, and now he's going to be zoned out of that and lose out his opportunity to go to this. Is there going to be any kind of changes done to allow things like that for him to go? That's the first question. The second one, I don't know if it was mentioned, is how often will you guys rezone? I don't know if that's come up, but if I did my math, there's no totals here. There's 25,000 current enrolled students out of a 29,249 capacity. It's 85%. We're almost at 90% across the district. We're growing in the city 1 to 2% per year. So in 3 to 4 years, we're going to be over capacity across the board. What's the long-term plan for this short-term rezoning problem? Those are my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. James.
Hi, good evening. I'm Colleen. I just had I had a question and looking for maybe a clarifying answer, or you guys can jot it down and address it later. But there was a comment mentioned earlier tonight that was on reducing the magnet program's capacity, but not much further description was toward it. So thinking long terms, to handle the capacity of the magnet programs, will other magnet programs be opened at other schools to handle those children? Or will magnet programs be reduced, period? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Colleen.
Hi, I'm Laura. I have 3 kids that go to Meadowbrook. Well, one just graduated. She was there K through 5, and I'm hoping that these get to stay there K through 5. One is in 1st grade, the other was in 3rd. So we are on the 39th Avenue corridor zoned from Meadowbrook currently, and you guys are pushing us into Talbot, and it starts in our neighborhood in Summer Creek. So we were hoping that that zone could be pushed at least to 51st, and west of that can stay at Meadowbrook. Just looking at the numbers on here for the proposed zones, you're 295 kids short of the school capacity for Meadowbrook for the ones that you are going to zone them for. So we have an old, small neighborhood, and the neighborhood right next to us, Emerald Woods, all those kids are going to continue to go to Meadowbrook, and then you're proposing us to go to Talbot, and then the difference for the Talbot then would only be 59 kids from school capacity and then the number of students zoned. So I would like, at least for the 39th Avenue corridor kiddos, to stay at Meadowbrook. It's much easier commute. I know that's selfish to say, but it's a much easier commute, just straight shot down 39th Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Laura.
Hello, I'm Gustavo, father of 2 kids in Child's area. So thanks for the presentation, more detailed presentation than I've seen in previous ones. But I really want to echo what other parents in that Cobblefield zone that were all uncomfortable about, that seemingly random stretch that reaches eastwards on that area, that it really makes no sense. Like, it's hard to convince us that it makes sense for us to trade 1 mile distance school, drive through it westbound, then to drive back, since most employers are eastbound to that region for everybody. That's a lot of extra traffic at peak hour to drive much more. And that, in one corridor, like 8th Avenue mostly, east-west, and there are even intersections operating with a flash red, a proper traffic signal there, with no signs that there will be next year.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, my name is Ming. I have two kids. One is 13 and the other is 4, coming to elementary. And so I'm one of the many neighbors from Cobblefield here tonight. I guess I just want to kind of point out that for that area, the northeast area that's get zoned into Terwilliger is going to kind of produce a big problem for our community, as you have heard, that we're all going to drive from the east to the west through several schools and then going back. And I mean, that's gonna make a logistic nightmare for a lot of people and also gonna produce a huge carbon footprint. I mean, my older son used to be able to bike to school in the morning, and I really love that. And right now, I mean, if we go drive to Terwilliger in a good day, I feel that's about 10 minutes, and I cannot predict what's gonna happen in the morning. So selfishly and also for the community, I feel that that area doesn't really belong in Terwilliger. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Jane McMullen. I'm a grandparent, and my grandson is in 3rd grade at Childs. And I wanted to just reiterate what several people have said. One is the 3rd graders are the kids who were in kindergarten and 1st grade when they had their whole lives disrupted. And it's been very difficult for them to overcome that. And I think that's going to take a few years still before they academically and socially can catch up to where they should be. So I think that that should be taken into consideration. We don't live in Cobblefield, but we have the same issue as far as the traffic and the distance to Childs, where my grandson currently goes. I would just ask that that the school board communicates with us and is flexible with the zoning exemptions if whatever you end up doing with the zoning maps, because these are kids, they changing schools and having to have all this change is disruptive. And there are lots of kids that have special needs that are being addressed in their current situation, and then, to start over again at a new school is difficult. So if you would be clear about the zoning exemptions and as flexible as you can be, understanding that you have to have, we have to have some zoning changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McMullen. Sir, anyone else?
Hi, my name is Megan. I have 3 daughters in elementary school, and I just have a general comment. First, thank you for undertaking this, I think, really necessary but difficult task, and for being here this evening. It would be really helpful when each iteration of the proposals presented to say what the district thinks it does well. What problems is it solving? I like the sort of factors outlined in Policy 5120. They're not particularly well defined. What is financial efficiency? What are we trying to do to sort of fix or better diversify sort of the schools socioeconomically? How are those being defined and looked at? And how does each version of the map fix one or more of those? Because I don't know what transportation might look like for each one of these. So I think it would just be helpful to sort of drill down which of these each version of the map fixes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Michelle. I'm a graduate of Alachua County Public Schools, and I have an 8th grader here at Kanapaha and an 11th grader at Buholtz. And I live in Hickory Forest, which is going to be switched to GHS. So I'll have a senior and a freshman next year going to different schools if my senior stays at Buholtz, which obviously she really wants to in her last year. So that creates a bit of a problem for my family. And also mostly related to transportation too. GHS is quite a bit further, and my current daughter at Buholtz rides the bus, and there's a lot of days that we have to take her to school or pick her up from school. So if I have 2 different kids at different schools, that's going to be a very difficult, not really possible thing. But also, will these new zones fix the busing problems? Will it, I don't know the answer to it, just will it create less busing so that there is more reliable bus transportation? Because if it's not, then that's something just I think that needs to be considered when you're moving kids. Like we're moving to GHS, it's a much further school. So if the parents are having to kind of pick up the slack on transportation when the buses are late or not coming, this is something to think about with everybody talking about moving further distances. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Michelle.
Hello, thank you so much. My name's Lindsay. I'm going to piggyback off of Michelle here. I have a daughter who is a junior at Buholtz this year, and I also have a son who is in 5th grade at Wiles. We are currently zoned for Buholtz, but we would be switched to GHS. And it seems to me like they're really eliminating the Archer Road line for Buholtz. But I would like to point out, and I don't know if you take this into consideration, the traffic patterns, because it is impossible for us to take a left out of our neighborhood at that time of day. So to have to go east towards GHS, which is 2 miles further away, just basic distance, not necessarily driving distance, it makes things extremely difficult as opposed to being able to turn right and head west, which is a much easier traffic pattern, and head north to Buholtz. So I just hope you're taking that into consideration as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lindsay. I want to thank each of you all for coming out tonight.
We are recording this meeting, so in probably early next week, we will be posting this meeting again on the rezoning website, as we do with all of the meetings. We've been taking furious notes. We've got several staff people here taking notes of everything you've said. We have the recording of the meeting. We've got your input forms that we'll be consolidating and sharing with the board and the people who are working on this plan. So again, all of this is very important as the board moves towards the adoption of a final rezoning plan on December 5th. In the meantime, I want to thank you all so much for being here. I understand you all have a very busy schedule, and we appreciate the kids who were terrific tonight, and they're what we're here, that's what we're all about. So thank you all again for being here, and have a safe trip home.